Hey, this is Victor Antonio, sales trainer and speaker, and you can find me at www.victorantonio.com. My friend Jeremy Gunter asked me to put this together for your team over at Hoover Paint. 2016, let's get rocking and rolling. So I got a few minutes to talk to you about what are some of the things that we can do in 2016 to improve our sales and our overall performance for our company. So let me give you three quick tips, and I'm going to go through these three methodically, but I want you to really work with me on this, and I know we're doing this at a distance. You're there, I'm here, but follow me, okay? Here's what I'd like you to do. Let's talk about tip number one. How can we improve our efficiency? How can we get more done? I suggest the following exercise. I want you to break out a pen and a paper right now. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead. Do it. Okay, got it? Here's what I want you to do. Just do me a favor. I'm going to walk through this with you. What I want you to do right now is I want you to pretend that you can cut off, let's say, 1 hour in a day, that you can save. You can find things not to do in a day that will save you an hour. Can you think of at least 2 or 3 things that you can cut out that would save you at least 1 hour per day? Let me give you some suggestions. Checking email too often. Going up online on the internet and looking for things and then hyperlinking onto something else. You ever have that experience? You look for one thing and then you wind up looking for a bunch of other things, but you forgot what you were looking for originally. Next thing you know, you've lost some time, right? So think about things that you can do, cut out of your workday that can actually increase your efficiency. And then let's run some numbers. This is fascinating. If you were able to reduce your wasted time, in other words, increase your efficiency, and let's say that you were able to save 1 hour a day. Go ahead and write that down, 1 hour per day. All right, got it? That would mean that's 5 hours per week. Write that down, 5 hours per week. Multiply that by 4 weeks, that's 20 hours per month, right? So you got 20 hours per month. Wow, that's a lot of hours. Now take that 20 hours per month and multiply it out by 12 months. You should have 240 hours. 240 hours. Now take that 240 and divide it by an 8-hour working day. You now get the number 30. Yes, by shaving off 1 hour a day for the whole year, you can save 30 days. To put that in perspective, the average working month is 20 days. So in other words, by shaving off 1 hour per day, you've now gained back a month and a half, 30 days. Think about that, 30 working days, a month and a half you saved by simply shaving off 1 hour off of wasted time, things that you shouldn't be doing, you should stop doing, or at least reduce what you're doing. Let me say that again. There's certain things we can stop doing. Let's just stop doing that. There's things that we may be doing that we could reduce how much time we dedicate to that. So my tip right now, starting out of the gate, is what can we stop doing and what can we reduce doing so we can gain that hour every day? And at the end of the year, if we do that, if we stick to the philosophy, we've just gained a month and a half's worth of time, which means we have more time to sell, right? The second thing I want to talk about is I really want to talk about, when we talk to our customers today, one of the things we have to get better at, and you've heard this many times, is that, it's all about listening. But beyond listening, I think it's about asking questions, but asking questions in such a way that drives the customer to arrive at a conclusion that you've already predetermined. Let me say it again. It's about asking questions in such a way that the buyer, the consumer, arrives at a conclusion that you've already predetermined. Let me give you an example so I can really drive this point home, because I believe the average salesperson practices what to say, but the best of the best practice what to ask. So, with that example in mind, let's talk about a number. I want you to go ahead, break out a pen and paper again. This time I'd like you to write down a number. Pick a number between 2 and 10. Go ahead, write your number down between 2 and 10. Do you have it? Good. Jeremy, check on him. Okay, you have it? Great. Now take that number and multiply it by 9. I'm doing this with you here also. Go ahead and multiply it by 9. You should now have a 2-digit number. Okay? Now, if you don't have a 2-digit number at this point, you're lost. I don't know how you got there, but there you are. But anyway, joking aside, you should have a 2-digit number. Now, take those 2 digits and add them together. You should now have a single-digit number. Okay? You guys with me? Now, I want you to subtract the number 5 from that number. Subtract the number 5. You should now have a new single-digit number. Now, that new single-digit number corresponds to a letter of the alphabet. For example, if you have a 1, that's A, 2, the letter B, 3, the letter C, 4D, 5E, you get the idea. So what I want you to do right now is look at that single digit number you now have, and what letter does it correspond to? Do you have it down? Good. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of a European country that begins with that letter. All right, go ahead and write a European country that begins with that letter. Do you have it? Do you have it? Okay, I can see some of you failed geography, but think about it. Do you have it? All right, for those of you still with me, I want you to look at that country name. Look at the second letter in that country name. Do you see the second letter? Yeah? I want you to think of a large mammal that begins with that letter. Again, look at the country name, look at the second letter, and what large mammal, what large land mammal begins with that letter? Write it down. I'm going to write it down with you also here. Okay, last part. I want you to write down the color of that animal. Okay? Now, let's see if I can read your mind from a distance. Here it comes. Here it comes. You guys ready? Here it comes. Here it comes. Tell me if this makes sense. There are no gray elephants in Denmark. There are no gray elephants in Denmark. How many folks actually had that? Raise your hand. Come on, raise your hand if you got that. Now, in other words, I guided you. If everything followed through and you listened to my instructions, you should have arrived at the letter D, the word Denmark, the animal being elephant, and the color being gray. Now, this is just an example of how I sequence my questions to have you arrive at a conclusion I've already predetermined. See, because part of selling, I should say a big part of selling, is asking the right questions, knowing how to actually dig for those pains that the customer has. Because sometimes the customer isn't thinking about certain things, and you have to ask the right questions or say the right things to shift their perspective. So again, don't focus so much on listening, that's important, but also practice the art of asking questions in such a way, sequencing your questions in such a way that the customer arrives at a conclusion you've already predetermined. So I want you to think about this. This is important because if you can do this to a customer, you can guide them just by asking them questions, you'll probably get them to say more times yes than no. Get the idea? Last but not least, this is going to be a concrete example on paints. Yes, Hoover Paint. Here's an example on paint. So many studies have showed. One of the most important studies I've read in the last year or two was done by the CEB. And what they talked about is that the buying experience has changed. In other words, how customers buy today, everything's changed. Customers are more informed. They talk about being 50 to 60% in the buying cycle. What does that mean? That means that they're more knowledgeable today before they even contact you or your store. In other words, they know a lot, right? Whether it's price, whether it's special offers, what paint they're looking for, so forth and so on. So what they found in this study was fascinating. That in this market, it's not about brand. Brand is important. Congratulations, Hoover Paint. Brand is important. But they also found out that it's not about price either. It's never about price. And it's also not about service or delivery. These three things are important. Don't get me wrong, they are important. But what they found is the overriding factor for a customer making a buying decision is the customer experience. Now listen to that, the customer experience. And they define the customer experience along these lines. Buyers are often confused because there's too many choices in the market. Or when they come into your store, there's just too many choices. They don't know if they're getting the best deal. Are they buying the right product? They need you to help them avoid any pitfalls or landmines. In other words, what customers are looking for today is not more information, but insight. Oh, what a great word, insight. Insight. My definition is information beyond the obvious. Register that. Insight is information beyond the obvious. Customers don't want more information. They're inundated with information. They got too much information. The thing is, they don't know how to sift through the information. That's where you, as a salesperson, have to come in and really help them out to provide that customer experience. Now think about this. Don't provide customers information, give them insight. And insight is information beyond the obvious. So let me walk you through an example. When I found this example, and I thought it'd be so appropriate for you guys. I'm going to read through it. But again, I think it's important to pay attention because this is the essence of insight, but also what customers are looking for when they walk into your store. Let's pretend for a moment that you have two cans. You have can A at $15. You have can B at $20. Customer walks in, and all of a sudden, you know what they're leaning for, right? They're leaning towards the $15 can. They're looking at the $15 can because they're going to save $5, right? Now, you as a salesperson will walk up and say something like this. You'll say, I strongly recommend can B. It's a higher price, but it will last 8 years, whereas can A will only last 4 years. That means that over 8 years, you'll have to buy can A twice. If you buy can A, you'll be paying $30 instead of $20 a gallon. So in reality, can B costs less and you only paint once instead of twice. The customer says, well, you know what? Who cares? He goes, I'm preparing to sell my home, so I don't care how long the paint lasts. Wow. And that's a reasonable response, right? But then you, as a salesperson, here's where the insight comes in. You say something like this. Mr. Customer, I understand, but I still think that can B, the $20 can, over can A, the $15, can B, the $20 is a better choice for you. Why? Can B contains 50% more pigment, which results in better coverage than can A. This means you'll need to apply only one coat. If you have a dark wall, you'll have to apply 2 coats if you buy can A, which means it'll double your labor and your cost. At this point, the customer now has to think about it. He never thought about pigmentation. He never thought about double coverage, having to paint twice, increased labor and cost. So now they're going, but here's where you come in with further insight and get them to think about things they haven't thought about. You'll say something like this. In addition, Mr. Customer, you are guaranteed that your house will look freshly painted, which in turn improves your chances of selling your house if you ever decide to do so. And that's when you ask him, can you now see how spending an additional $5 is a great investment to sell your home at the price that you want? Wow, what a great example, right? Because what you've done is that the customer was focused only on price. We have those, don't we? Customers who only focus on price. And when you're presented with 2 options, customers will always want to mitigate their risk and go to the cheapest one. What you're doing here is moving beyond the price point. You're actually helping them make a more intelligent decision by talking about pigmentation, making them realize that if they have a dark wall, they'll probably have to cover it twice with the other can of paint, the cheaper one. But on top of that, if they plan to sell the house in the future, hey, what better way than to make sure it sells faster, looks freshly painted, than to use a little more expensive paint? Get the idea? That's what customers want today. It's insight. So let's wrap this up. I've given you 3 tips. The first one is on efficiency. Just by simply shaving off 1 hour off our day in terms of time wasted on things that really don't need to be attended to, like internet, email too often, we can actually gain a month and a half's worth of work time by simply saving 1 hour per day. Second, we talked about how the average salesperson practices what to say, but the best of the best, practice what to ask. By asking questions, you lead customers to a conclusion you've already decided for them. In other words, you know what's best for them, so ask them the questions to make them aware. Third, customers don't want a brand, don't want a price, and kind of don't care about the service. At the end of the day, they want the full package, the customer experience. Brand is important, price is important, service is important, of course it is. But the customer experience, what happens when I walk through that door and I'm confused? I don't know what options are available. I don't know what to do. I'm looking to do something, and I'm thinking this, and I need somebody to help me. That's where you're going to provide them more information. Is that right? Yes or no? No. They don't want more information. They want insight. That's information beyond the obvious. In the case of the paint example, is make them aware of pigmentation, the real cost of going with a cheaper paint versus a more expensive one. This is what customers want. They want you to improve the customer experience by helping them. Do these things, and I think you'll be able to increase your close rate, your sales performance this year. I wish you all the best. Jeremy, take care. Hoover Paint team, go to it. Talk to you later. This is Victor Antonio.